collapse these slightly so I can get in behind those pins. And often it's just a build-up of dust and grit. Occasionally you'll get some other big lump that'll settle in there. There'll be some other contaminant that you don't want. It really doesn't want to drop into place at this side. I think things are a little bit bent. Alright, let's have a look at things to see if they are bent. So the struts. Now the inner struts, here and here, those struts should be straight. And the rivets at the end there should be at 90 degrees. They should be perpendicular. Now it's not uncommon for them to not be perpendicular. Let's give them a little nudge to get them nice and square. The outer ones. The outer ones on both sides should be slightly dished. They should be concave on the outside. In other words, the ends should be higher than the middle. And they should be fairly even. That one looks a bit flat. And what that does is when this is in the camera body, there's some tension across here, which acts to push this side down, which lifts this side up. It pops the buttons into position, helps them lock into place. And if there's no tension there, they won't do it. That's working nicely. These two little brackets, top and bottom, their job is to stop you from being able to depress these buttons if the focus scale ring is not back at the infinity position. You can force it, and people regularly do, but that's what it's designed to do, and generally speaking it works fairly well for cautious users. Of course, we're all cautious users. Okay, well I'll just continue cleaning this down with a bit of naphtha and a cotton bud until I've got it as sparkly as I like, and get rid of all that dust and rubbish. And then I'll have to turn my attention to gathering up all the components we've taken off the body, sorting out anything that needs to be cleaned by hand, like this, and dealing with it, and stuff that I want to clean in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll gather that all together in one place, and it can go into the cleaner, and that can be happily buzzing away in the background while I'm doing other things. Well, I'm quite happy with the state of that. I think that's good. Those struts feel good. Let's have a quick look at the take-up spool. The take-up spool is plastic. Don't go attacking this with solvent. I know from experience I can get away with a little wipe with naphtha, but not much more than that. You will find cameras where someone has squirted solvent into the take-up, into the film advance, usually in a vain hope that they're going to get something that's not working smoothly to suddenly work smoothly again. And it will actually damage the plastic. And typically what you see is that the plastic is rough and grey looking, might obviously look melted. This one's fine, no problem. So that take-up spool, that's good. I'll gather together the mechanical components and let's put them in the ultrasonic cleaner. Some things do not go through the cleaner. Alright, the focus helical, the inner and outer, they can go in. So can its cover plate. The advanced shaft, film advanced shaft. That's the rewind bush, that certainly can. The rewind shaft. The inner rewind shaft. From the top of the film advanced shaft, this was our sprocket shaft. Here's a bush for the film advance. This is all nasty looking stuff. The gear. Now, these two pieces, they're from the sprocket. They've got a screw in the side which we'd almost certainly lose if I put it through the cleaner. So I'm not putting it through the cleaner, they're clean enough. Washers, shaft levers, screws. All the screws I'm going to put through the cleaner. The shutter release. This component from the frame counter, but not this one. It's got engraved numbers on it. There's paint in those engravings and it would come out. I'm not putting the knobs, top and bottom, rewind and advance knobs in the cleaner. They don't need to go there, and that would also strip out the paint. The two springs from the film advance, I'm not putting them in the cleaner. This is the advanced rewind lever, but not the springs. Springs are a liability. They have a great propensity to catch on things, and if they drop, because of their springy nature, they bounce, and they bounce off under the furniture and other places where you'll never see them again. So springs, I don't put them through the cleaner. What's that leave us that we've got to deal with? Well, these few components can be cleaned by hand, and that's going to be simple enough. This one. This doesn't go through the cleaner because the paint would strip off the back of it, and all this dried grease will need to be dug out with a toothpick really, because it's gone like a hard wax. So this to the cleaner. I'll explain cleaning once it comes back. Okay, time to clean this thing up. It's a bit of a mess. I'm using a toothpick here to scrape away that grease. And it's quite hard, it's really like a wax. Certainly not as dry and hard as the dreaded egg for green grease, but a problem all the same. Now here we've got something interesting going on. Can you see that thread? That certainly shouldn't be there. It's fairly brittle. I don't know what it is. Some horse hair or animal hair, I would say it, I guess. Anyway, it's gone, that's the main thing. Right, clean this up. Naphtha, cigarette lighter fluid and cotton buds. We'll start with that. That seems to be doing the job. I'm starting on the outside and working my way in. There's no reason for there to be any grease on the outside really, so this is all grease that is migrated. Right, now get down in here. You can see the state of that. It's very, very nasty. Of course, the hard part to get to is behind the two posts that guide the inner helical. But you can usually do a reasonable job with a toothpick to get in behind that and scrape away anything there that's causing a problem. That looks pretty good. I'll go around the inside there, around the outside at the back. You've got to put back that felt. I'd like to say it's a light trap. I don't think it really does an awful lot. Okay, that's looking good. Get in there with a toothpick again, see if I can clean in behind these posts. It's looking okay. I'll cheat and make myself a very small cotton bud so I can get some solvent in behind there. I'll do that by getting some cotton, wrapping that onto a toothpick, putting a bit of naphtha on there. That just allows me to get in there and wipe those surfaces that I otherwise couldn't get to. Alright, that's looking good. We're pretty much at the reassembly stage for the focus stuff, I think. Just clear that dirty stuff away. So what do we want to do? I think probably put the struts back into the casting first. Would be a good place to start. I'm going to start with some synthetic grease. The stuff I use is this Inox MX6. If you can't find it outside of Australasia, that doesn't surprise me much. Right, let's start. Usually I put some in the grooves at the back there. And that'll work in quite quickly. On the shaft here for the shutter release, you could use the same. I've got some molybdenum paste here, which is better. I'm just wiping that on the shaft. So as these pieces run up and down, they'll run smoothly. I'll run some into this tube here. Doesn't need much. Just a tiny wipe. Let's see about putting these back in the body. I haven't done anything about putting grease on the front there because it'll only get rubbed off with my fingers while I'm trying to get this struts in place, so there's no point. Okay, so let's bring the body back. We have the return spring for the shutter release. Goes back over the post. Now this bit, getting this all in its correct orientation. This is what it should look like. The short end should go down to the bottom. Our strap should be sitting here for the shutter release. We have to get this tube over that shaft. Like that. I'll get those struts open, dried up, and get them down into the body. Okay, that's looking good. Now we've got 4 screws and 2 spacers. I'll see if I can get the screws in at the end here, at the film cassette end, see if I can get those 2 screws in. Can you see the holes for them? Yes, you can just see the holes for them here and here. We have 4 screws, they're black. 2 of them will be prettier than their mates. They'll be the ones from the film cassette chamber. That's the idea at least. See if I can get those screws in. I'll get those screws started. If I can get the holes lined up, get you back in the picture. I'm doing the one you can't see because that's the one I can see. Let's get the other one in place. Yeah, that's started. Okay, now we want to see about the other 2 screws. Okay, so we know 1 screw goes in here at the top and 1 at the bottom. Now these washers, these spacers, they need to go, you can get this where you can see it. You can just about see that. They need to go in here and in here, between the body and the struts. So, see if I can get that slid down into place. I know I'm aiming for this spot here. And if I lift that rail slightly with my tweezers, that washer is dropped into place. You can just see the edge of it here. So I've got to move it over. So I'll do that with my tweezers. You can just see it now. Now I've moved it too far. Okay, it's lined up. I've got it lined up there. take the next prettiest screw, which is in our case actually the one that came from the bottom of the camera. Run that down lightly. Now we need to achieve the same thing at the other side. And I can just see that washer there and see the hole I've got to get to. This is the most mutilated of the screws. It's not lining up particularly well. Let's see if we can get those struts positioned. Just looking at that, yeah, that's running in, that's okay. So our 4 screws are all in position and we can tighten the screws up. Anytime you've got a situation like this where you've got multiple screws holding something in position, get all the screws in position first before you do anything rash, like tighten the screws up. Otherwise, there's nothing surer than that you won't be able to get one of the screws or more of the screws in position. Right, that's that. So our struts are in place. We've lubricated the slots at the back of them. Just make sure that this rises and falls smoothly, that the buttons pop out. That's all looking good. This piece, this is our focus mount, and we need to put the piece of felt on the back of that with a couple of drops of glue. So what I normally do is put a spot of glue on a piece of paper, and put that out of harm's way. Take a toothpick Okay, so we had 4 spots of glue on here, and there's probably nothing wrong with replicating that. That paper aside, it's not going to get in the way. Now the felt is shaped, and it should just go on, and the screw holes should pretty much line up. You may need to shuffle it about a bit. It will probably be stretched because it's been pulled off, which means it's probably not as neatly shaped as it once was. But it'll do the job. And where it was split, which was across here, because it sort of tore apart, those pieces are overlapped now, and that's as good as gold. It'll be as light resistant as it ever was, or as it ever needed to be. I better find the screws to fit this to the front standard. There are our screws. So now all we need to do is bring the body in and get our front standard in position. Right, 4 screws, they're quite long, they're black, they drop down into those counterboard holes at the corners there. Right, so collapsing the struts slightly with my finger so that I can get the screws to pick up on the plate in the bellows. One of them seems reluctant to start. The felt is probably, there it's going now. Alright, so the 4 screws are all in place. I'm just holding this with my finger. I'll tighten those screws up. Don't go mad tightening these screws up. You're tightening up against the felt. The felt's being crushed between the bellows and the back of the front standard. It won't come to a sudden halt like when you're pulling 2 metal surfaces together. So if you go crazy, you'll feel that those screws, you can just keep tightening them and tightening them and tightening them until they snap. Okay, so there's our front standard with the bellows all in place, and we can assemble the focus mount. Well, here I have the inner and outer helical screwed back together and sitting in the correct orientation relative to each other. So when the front surfaces are level, I can see the marks here and here that were previously made by someone previously, and I checked to see that they were in the right place so I could find the right orientation again. So how would you get this thing together? Well, when it's been cleaned, it's going to come out looking like this. What we want is to screw the inner to the outer so that when the front surfaces are level, this V-shaped notch lines up. So the easiest way is just hit and miss. Get it started, check, and when these are level, the inner mark is over here and the outer mark is over here, so the inner is too far this way, too far anti-clockwise. So I'm going to unscrew that, move it around a little bit, see if I can get it to re-engage. This is always a bit trying. That's it, it's just engaged. And check where my alignment marks are. Well, I'm closer. The inner alignment mark is here and my outer alignment mark is there. So more of the same. Remove that, bring it round a little bit further. What you're doing here is you're backing up the threads until you feel them click into place and then go forward. Now, this time, my marks, let's see if I can get this so it shows on the camera. You've got to get the light right for this. Not those marks. Those marks are for the other thing. Yeah, it's these marks here we're after. See if I can get them to show. Yeah, that doesn't really show up very well. Yeah, you can just see them there. Those are the marks there that we're interested in. And when those two marks are aligned, if I hold a straight edge across the front there, the inner and outer are in the same plane. They're level with each other. So that's the point, that these two, the inner and outer, need to be relative to each other. So now I've got to lubricate that and put it into the focus mount. And what I use for lubrication is this stuff. Helimax XP, optical instrument and helicoid grease. It's worked well for me. A little pot like this costs you lots of money. You have to get it on the internet. But it'll last you for years and years and years. Alright, let's do this. Okay, so how I do this is I back the inner helical out, not all the way because we don't want to disconnect. We've just spent time getting it lined up. And I put a little wipe of molybdenum helical grease around that exposed thread in about five spots will do you. Like that. Then screw it in and work it backwards and forwards in your fingers just to get that grease distributed evenly. That feels good. Okay, so to get this in the mount, we need some lubrication between the outer helical and our focus mount. And you could use just about anything for that, but this is the grease I've got in my hand, so this is the grease I'm using. Now, where those two rods come up that stop the inner helical rotating, just give that groove a little wipe. Let's bring this back into play and get this in position. I'll just bring those down to they're about even. Now, this is the top of the camera, this is the bottom of the camera. I had one line scribed at the top on my outer ring, two lines scribed at the bottom. So I know that that fits in this way. That's it, it's just dropped in. Normally what I would do at this stage is take a toothpick and swing it backwards and forwards to check that the focus moves smoothly. That seems fine. The retaining plate needs to go on next. This only goes on one way. You can see the cutouts, top and bottom, for this thing and this thing. So it goes on like that. You can see the holes are countersunk for the screws, for the screw heads. So, taking a little bit of grease, just run it on the back edge around the circular opening. That's just so that this surface here is lubricated basically. This can drop into place and we have 6 small screws to put in there. I just put these in one at a time, loosely. Now, when you're working on the focus helical of something like this camera, as long as everything goes back in the same position it started, the focus will be correct, assuming it was correct to start with. And that's usually a good assumption, because cameras have most frequently only been serviced, if at all, by a professional, and they would have taken care to make sure that the focus was correct or remained correct if they've had this apart before. Of course, it may well happen that the camera's never been disassembled, and here you'll notice I'm holding it by the front standard. I'm not crushing that front standard back down into the camera body. Well, that looks good. Now I'll just check that the focus still moves freely. That feels okay. Our focus scale ring can go in place. Just checking I've got that all clean. Now we've got the alignment marks. You can see the alignment marks top and bottom here. We've got two lines at the bottom, one line at the top, and this is held on with 4 screws. Again, run the screws down very lightly, because we might need to adjust this if I've managed to knock it out of alignment with my marks. No, it's looking good. Now the Retina I is a viewfinder camera rather than a rangefinder camera, so it's of no problem at all to have a relatively stiff focus adjustment, because you'll be looking at the scale, you'll be setting the scale, and then you'll be taking your photo. With a rangefinder camera, you'll have the camera to your eye while you're adjusting the focus, and in that case, having a focus that moves very smoothly and lightly is an advantage. Not so with a viewfinder camera. Okay, so I'll just tighten up those 4 screws. And check that my focus is nice and smooth. That works very well. I wouldn't say it feels an awful lot different from what it was when we started. It's slightly smoother, I suppose, but you know, it felt pretty good to start with. That is the focus mount all back in the camera, and we could fit the front door. That's probably a good thing to do.